So, guys, I do want to talk about the Britt Baker and MJF feud, and I do want to actually just, give my opinion about this. So, Britt Baker did get suspended with this, so I just want to read off my notes. Britt Baker was suspended for a period ranging from 1 to 2 weeks and fined by All Elite Wrestling due to comments made backstage about fellow wrestler MJF and interviewer Alicia Atout. This incident transpired on July 17th episode of Dynamite, leading to a formal investigation spearheaded by the Human Resources Department, which involved gathering testimonies from several witnesses present at the scene. I do want to mention that Lisa Tao is actually MJF's girlfriend, and then also I believe that they're about to be engaged. And this was actually the 250 special episode of AEW Dynamite, where they did the hour-long Will Ospreay and MJF match. And it goes on to say that AEW has been facing persistent challenges concerning the environment within the women's locker room, which has been described as problematic and unwelcoming. Wrestlers like Thunder Rosa have publicly shared their grievances about the negative atmosphere, further highlighting the ongoing issues. Britt Baker's suspensions and fine were a direct consequence of her critical remarks about MJF during his match against Will Ospreay, which was deemed inappropriate by management. The disciplinary process within AEW includes suspensions with a fact that suggests a relatively lenient approach to such infractions. Additionally, there are discussions about how AEW strategically leaks information to Wrestling Observer newsletter, which Dave Meltzer owns, potentially as a means to control narratives and manage public perceptions. This tactic might be integral to garnering positive publicity, especially important late significant upcoming events, such as television deals and the high-profile show at Wembley Stadium. And my notes go on to say that that I do agree with some of the things that I researched, and I did check out a couple of channels like Solid Monster, Jim Cornette, and they also talked about Dave Meltzer, and also they also both mentioned that the leak came from Dave Meltzer. So there's a couple of things about this that I want to say. That first of all, I do think that it's really unfortunate that these things do come out from AEW, because honestly, any type of suspension or bad publicity is bad for AEW in general, because people have tuned away from AEW because of the unprofessionalism. To quote OTRS Central is that if they're really focused on beefing with CM Punk and backstage drama and other issues, maybe you put a camera backstage and everybody would want to watch that, but it just doesn't make people want to watch the show, really, because people are like, it's just upsetting, disheartening, and it just brings more talking points on the drama, not the drama within the ring, So it's definitely bad, but also, too, if anybody leaks anything to the Wrestling Online Observer newsletter, they need to spoken to, like, disciplinary committee, and everybody needs to spoken to about that, because all that does is make the company look bad, As I said, you look at WrestleMania season, and you look at how it opened really with Vince McMahon sexual assault allegations, but The Rock and everybody else really stepped up to just, save WrestleMania by the Cody versus Roman match and everything like that, really, But obviously, if they didn't do that, obviously the Vince investigation would have overshadowed it. So definitely, it's not great when you have these things come out, really, because it's extra work for the other people who stay out of trouble. You look at last year when they had All Out in Chicago and how it was really all the wrestlers, putting on good matches because they knew the CM Punk leaving the company and the issue with Jack Perry and the double standards and all that really hurt it. So, so definitely it's not the time for any of this shit to happen. And it's also not good when things get leaked. It does not help AEW look better. It helps it looks worse, really. The other thing that I want to mention is that I think the good thing that came out of this is at least the AEW disciplinary committee is doing something. So instead of this becoming, another issue or something that's existing for years and maybe something made worse, and maybe there's a bigger blow up, it's good that this happened now, it was reported, and this got dealt with, because it shows that AEW is being progressive. They're not saying, okay, well, boys will be boys, wrestlers will be wrestlers, girls will be girls. Basically, wrestlers will be wrestlers. Everybody beats a little bit. No, they actually did something. So I'm proud of them for doing that. Even though it may seem lenient, it does show that they are being proactive. But I do say that obviously the punishment does not fit the crime, because I do think that, you need to put on like maybe a strike 1, strike 2, strike 3 at AEW thing, and also maybe some communication sensitivity classes. I think that that's what you should do. Just like when they had Sam Guevara, like even though he said I want to rape Sasha Banks, even though he said that years and years and years before that was before that got leaked, and that's why I got disciplined. I do appreciate what they did with him, where they actually suspended him. They took his pay, and then they gave it to a women's shelter, and then they also had him take classes. And that's the same thing with Max Caster when he made an insensitive rap. Really, it was damage control, but it was a good look for the company to say at least we're donating their money to a charity, but also what we're also doing is we're rehabilitating our employees, and that's kind of maybe what they need is some rehabilitation for Britt Baker and even MJF. I do want to say that MJF did punch a wall, and definitely that's not good either because that's vandalism. And as my dad says, walls have feelings. But the point of it is that it's just not a good look for him either. I know he could be irritated. I know that MJF is passionate. I know that MJF, his character is someone with antisocial disorder. So you don't know how much that is in reality. He's a little bit like New Jack in the sense that sometimes you got to ask yourself, is this a person that's turning up their personality? Is this a person showing, maybe their id, ego, super ego, their conscious, subconscious, super subconscious, as we learn from Freud? Or is this some guy, just who's a very manipulative person, who's actually, the same person that he is off the camera? Maybe somebody who's antisocial and has emotional maturity issues. But either way, that wasn't an appropriate response by MJF. Really. I think that I would even say, you would have to kind of put him in a, in some anger management or like some communication and teamwork classes. Like he and Britt Baker should get that. I think that would be good for everybody. But I do understand there's a couple of things with this. That obviously, Britt Baker going home and I believe the suspension wasn't, I believe the suspension was without pay. Either way, if you're a professional wrestler, you're making so much money a week that it doesn't really hit the bank that much. And then also too, obviously if you were off the road for like 2 weeks, that's like 2 weeks worth of salary. If Britt Baker's making $100,000 a year, let's just cheat a little bit and say, like 50 weeks in a year, so $100,000, she's losing like $4,000. After she does her taxes and everything like that, and all that, that's not really a big deal. One time I snuck out of work early and I was suspended for a day, really, and it was the exact same thing. It doesn't teach a lesson because even though I was being a jackass and doing it, a 1-day suspension doesn't hurt your wallet because of taxes and other things like that, really. So yeah, it's definitely very lenient. But I understand you have Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker, but maybe this is a way for cooler heads to prevail. Let's separate everybody. I think that's why they did this. And then the fine is just to show some harshness. But I do think that, as I've said, that I do think that they just want to protect everybody, make everybody in a good mood for Wembley Stadium. You have Mercedes Moné versus Britt Baker, so I think that's why it was lenient. And then the next thing is that you have MJF versus Ospreay, so I don't think they punished him because obviously that's the big money match, really. I think that Daniel Bryan's possible retirement is going to be the biggest draw is the biggest draw that they have, because obviously Bryan Danielson has been main events of WrestleMania, as people know who he is. But your second biggest draw is Will Ospreay versus MJF. A match that was for the AEW title, that would be a good main event. And then your third biggest draw is Swerve Strickland. No, my bad. Swerve Strickland's in the main event. But those are your two biggest draws, really. Mercedes Moné versus Britt Baker, obviously Mercedes Moné name. So yeah, they just want to make their two other biggest draws. Their first biggest draw, Ospreay. I know their second biggest draw, Ospreay and MJF, and Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné. They wanted to do something where they gave a punishment, but they were lenient, And they kind of said, okay, well, look at it as you got 2 weeks off and you paid a little bit of a fine, really. So I do think that it's like a punishment with showing off some consequences, but also showing off some leniency just to make everybody happy. Just so I'm just gonna say, okay, something was done, and it seems a little harsh, but then the little harsh part, which is okay, it's Wembley Stadium season. They have to make sure everything is good to go, really. But overall, I really also would say the final thing is that, well, fuck both of them. I think MJF had emotional maturity in this one. Britt Baker had more of it. But the point of it is, learn from what happened last year at Wembley Stadium. Learn what happened at All Out in Chicago 2022. You have to stop doing that. You have to put the company first. This is their biggest show of the year. And this is like their WrestleMania. So they really, really have to make sure that this shit does not continue. And then finally, I'll say this, that Tony Khan really has to tell everybody, you know what, if you embarrass me, if you do something that's going to garner national attention and take the spotlight off of Wembley Stadium, last year we had a record attendance. If you take the spotlight off of this, if any of you wrestlers, it could be Bryan Danielson, or it could be Marco Stunt up and down the roster. If you take the moment, if you take focus off of you, if you take the focus off your show with backstage drama or a fight or whatever, I'm firing your ass. And because I'm rich, I will talk to Hunter, and I will bribe Hunter and Shad Khan and if I'm saying his name right, or that Khan who works in WWE. And I will bribe Stephanie McMahon. I wouldn't even mind bribing them a limo, but I will bribe them to say, you know what, you're not even working there. I'll even talk to TNA and throw them a couple of stones. I'll make sure you don't work in the wrestling business again, because this shit needs to stop. And that's what he needs to do, because everybody has to understand that this is the biggest show of the year. Backstage drama and the quality of the show, it shouldn't be thrown away because of backstage drama. This has happened 2 years in a row. The cycle needs to break. And then the last thing that I'm going to say is that, Tony needs to step up and really say that. But also, as I said, that everybody in the AEW roster has to understand you're back at Wembley Stadium. You need to make it a big deal. Even though there's like 45,000 seats sold, I believe, they can make another 40,000 and more if they want to. They can. They need to put all the energy into this. And the wrestlers need to work hard and invest and actually do that. But I really think that... and also understand that any drama takes away from this. So I do hope that the AEW and everybody on that roster really learns to just cut the shit. Really think about the bigger purpose. You're trying to sell at Wembley Stadium. You're trying to make it the WrestleMania of the summer, and really just do that. And if you don't do that and don't care about doing that, and you think your personal drama is worth that, Tony Khan has to fire your ass. And if he doesn't do it, then fuck him.